be as interactive as possible. So please, while I'm speaking, if you have any question, feel free to interrupt, or you can write it on the chat. In this way, I think it would be more interesting. Or at the end, we also have a question and answer section where we can speak more freely about this. So I have prepared a section of slides, and the reason why I did that is because I want to give a brief interview about myself, and I want to tackle a bit of the breaking the bias topic of this year, International Women's Day. And I will speak about my experiences, and I will try to be as honest as possible. As I was speaking before with Luisa, I have attended many of these events. And I think that what I'll try to do is to say what are the difficulties that I've encountered and how I am trying to solve them. However, I don't think that one solution applies to everyone. So in no way I would like to say this is the best way, the best solution for this problem. I just think that the first thing we need to do when we want to improve or to tackle a problem is to understand that we have that problem. So for me, already admitting that I need to improve this has been quite a big challenging part of my life. Okay, so I will start sharing my slides. I hope everyone can see them. Yes, okay, so this is little me and my sister. I always get emotional when I see this picture because this picture just, I think, captures everything about of my personality. And the reason why I wanted to start with this picture with me as a little girl is because I believe that part of our personality and traits are developed when we are small children. So what I want to say with that is when I was part of Department of Engineering side in Oxford, and I was working and I was part of the Women in Engineering Society, we did several events, and I was so happy being part of that society because what we are doing is we're trying to motivate women to be part of the STEM subject. And what we understood year by year, as we're doing more of these events, every year we were going from high school, we were going then to secondary school and then to elementary school, because what we understood is that these traits of what you want to be as an adult, what is your dreams, they are developed when we are children. And that's why that was one of the biggest lessons. And that's when I turned this insight that I got while I was working with the Women in Engineering Society to myself. And I said, okay, hold on, why and when I had this desire of becoming an engineer. And I don't want to say engineer, it's more of like having that curiosity, developing things. And that's why I've put this picture here, because I think since I was a child, I come from a family of 2 engineers, by both parents are engineers. And I still have my biggest memory when I was a child is when my parents were bringing me, they are both civil engineer, and they were building these bridges and these houses, and they were bringing me with them to the office or to the places they were building. I could see how I was becoming more curious. I wanted to say, oh wow, how can you build that? Since when I was 3 or 4 years old. And another thing that you can see here is that I am the smallest one with the short hair. And even though I love dress, I love the Barbie dolls, and I love playing, Mrs. World and all these things that little girls like, I also like playing football, which was something very extraordinary of the time, because in my neighborhood, it was just a team of boys playing football. And if I wanted to fit in to play football, I had to have my hair short. Otherwise, they would make fun of me because I was girly. And so that's why I have all my pictures when I was a child until I went probably into the secondary school with my hair short. When my hair was growing up a bit, I was just putting a cap, like a baseball cap. So I was trying to fit in this kind of like masculine society. And I was actually one of the best players of the football team. And I also became the captain, just I needed to have my hair short. And what I want to say with that is my parents never, ever told me why you are playing football or why you are cutting your hair short. So they let me express myself. They let me think out of the box in the way that I can have a red dress, a pinky dress. I can have Barbie dolls. At the same time, I can play football. So relating it with what I said about my experience at Women in Engineering Society, I think that since children, in this case, both girls and boys, since they are small children, we need to let them to express their main traits of characteristics. So I think that part of my success of not wanting to fit in has become from this little girl who she never tried to fit in, or better, she fit in, but still she wanted to wear the red dress and still she wanted to be the Miss World. So it's kind of like I just at the time did not understand all these conceptions that, hey, you want to play football, you have to have short hair. So with this, I want to say that I want to thank my family and mainly my parents for allowing me to be who I was and to always be different. I think that's part of my success. So yeah, as I mentioned before, since at a young age, I got interested in engineering. I was curious. I wanted to build things, and that came the fact that after in high school, I attended a technical high school. And also there I have all these biases. I was a girl with a pinky diesel bag where in it I was having all these electronic tools, building my circuits. And when I was going out in the coffee after schools, I had my friends making fun of me sometimes of like, oh, wow, look, you have like lipsticks, you have this pink diesel bag, and in it I have all these electronics. And I was so proud of my circuits because I was like 16, 15, and I was building my first electronic circuit. I was trying to understand how I can start with all these different components, very simple, very cheap, and I can build something. And I remember when my first lamp started lighten up, I felt like I was on the top of the world. So this kind of biases of being a girl who wanted to be an engineer has been always part of my life. And I think that in one way or another, sometimes I've lost with all this preconception where people wanted me to fit in. But I think in the long run, I can say that I managed to stand up and do the thing that I wanted, independently of where people think that I should be or what I should wear or what I should do. And after I finished my high school, I took the big decision. I moved from Albania. So originally I am from Albania, which is a small country in the Balkans. And then I moved to Italy. Albania has always had a very strong connection with Italy. And the reason why I moved to Italy is because I come from a middle-class family in Albania, and I always wanted to study in the UK. It was very expensive. In Italy, I was granted a scholarship immediately. And I'm very happy with my choice, because in this way, however, if I've moved directly to the UK, I've missed all the part that I'm going to say right now. So I moved to Italy for my university. I did first my bachelor in communication engineering, so always in the science part. I've always been fascinated by math, by physics, but also the engineering part, which I got from my parents, of not just having the things in theory, because in theory everything is beautiful, but how do they actually become reality has been quite something that I always wanted to understand, so to apply theory to practice. I spent 3 years of my bachelor in Italy, and then I started my Master of Science in Italy, in Turin, and Polytechnic in Turin. And then in my Master of Science, I won the scholarship from Erasmus, which was also a life-changing option for me. So as you can see, during my life, I always was looking for new opportunities. That means that I was never happy with what I had. I just wanted to try more and more. And I'm very happy that scholarship like Erasmus existed there. So they gave possibility of different university students to mix. And also, in addition to learning new scientific things, I was also learning and being part of new culture, which I've loved. So I learned Italian. I have my Italian friends, and then I moved to France, where I did my second year of master, and I got this double degree program. From Italy, I moved to south of France. There, it was a big shock for me, because north of Italy, at least Turin, is quite a student city, which means that it was okay to live there. When I lived in south of France, for all of you that has visited, it's very expensive. So there I also developed the thing, hey, I have this limited amount of money, limited amount of resources. How can I live and make my life easy? However, by moving to these different 3 countries, I have also developed this love for food and this love for art. Italy and France, I think, are kind of like the places where you'd like if you want to eat some good food or to visit some good museums. So in addition to that, it also helped me understand these new things about myself, about my personality, that I loved art, I loved history. When I was a little kid, I was only interested in math and science, and I never thought I would be interested in history. When I grew up, I was like, well, wait a minute. I was not interested probably in my history teacher that I had at the time, but I actually like history. So also this is to say that as we grow up and as we immerse ourselves in new cultures, we learn all these new things. And after finishing my master in France, I did an internship. And even though I've always been interested in doing a PhD, I knew that I wanted to do a PhD, I decided to go and work. There are three main reasons, I think, why I decided to go and work instead of directly doing a PhD. First of all, was the money reason. So I was a student. I've been able to get all the possible scholarship that I had, but I was, okay, I need to now to put also all the knowledge that I've earned to put it into action and make some money. The second one was that I was looking forward to a PhD where I could take the ownership. So all the PhD proposals that I have at the time were in collaboration with many companies. So I felt like I was not given the freedom to do my research. And the third one is I fell in love with south of France. So I just felt a bit too early for me to leave it. So I wanted to have the full experience. However, now when I look back, I think that was the best decision, because after I worked for 1 year in a startup in France, I learned French. I was more part of the French culture. I lived there for 3 years. I moved to Oxford. I got my PhD there. And I think that for me, doing this 1 year in startup was really good, because then when I finished my PhD, I already knew what industry was. So I had the comparison, and I have encountered many people after a PhD where they are a bit lost of like, what is the best thing to do. So I think that helped me. And I can also say that technically this is not also like the usual path that people would take, right? But I think it's probably the most challenging one, and I really enjoyed it. So I moved from France to Oxford. I want to say just a bit why I chose that PhD. So my PhD was sponsored by Muxoft, which is a company in San Francisco. It's a startup. And as I mentioned before, I wanted a PhD where I could have full freedom. There are many challenges and fears that comes with that. But I was very happy to find a company who was just happy to pay for my PhD, but they had no say in actually the research. The CEO of the company, it's very scientific driven. So I could speak with him. We had very challenging discussion, but they were not interfering with my research. And also the way I was able to get this sponsorship is by doing the 3-minute elevator pitch, how we call it. Usually it's 1 minute, but mine was 3 minutes. And so actually for me, that was also winning. So I had 3 minutes meeting this the CEO from a Silicon Valley startup and just telling, hey, do we have a spare of 100,000 pounds to give it to me, because I have these very funny ideas for my PhD. And that also helped me to believe, first of all, in my ideas, to say, hey, I have something to do that. And here, relating it to breaking the biases, I discovered that actually there are more men than women that do that. And I think, I don't know, many reasons, as I said, there are many research where I can say this could happen. I think it's related with self-confidence. And sometimes I think it's just related with taking the step, right? At the time, I was so scary to just go to someone and say, hey, can you fund me my PhD? But at the end, I just said, okay, the worst thing that he can say is no, and it's okay. So I think that also there we can say that we need to have this thing of self-belief and self-confidence in saying to do the right research, of course, because when I went there, I've done the right research. It was almost 1 year while I was working in parallel, trying to find the best ideas for my research. So I knew I was prepared, but still at the time, I remember when I was having that meeting, at first I was like, okay, I have no idea what I'm going to say. But then you are in front of the person, and magically the words that you have prepared for almost 1 year come. So and I think that was also the main part of my PhD, because I had this freedom, which is very challenging, but at the same time, I grew a lot. I grew a lot because I was the ownership of my research. I was the one, if something was failing, I was the one that I was, okay, I need to solve it. And if someone, and when my paper were accepted, also the joy was maximal. Now this could sound as something simple, but was not simple at all. So this is a journey of 4 years. And there were many days where I was crying, many days where I said, okay, I'm going to quit my PhD, probably half of the days, I would say, because you have this things inside yourself. But this thing that keep doubting you, okay, is this the right thing? And mainly for me, because I had like a full-time job, quitting it, and then you go in the PhD where you are like, okay, is this the right thing to do? It's also something that, particularly the first 2 years of my PhD, I struggled a lot. When I finished my PhD, I knew that I wanted to go to industry. As I mentioned before, the PhD for me was more a research. I had my own idea, was a personal challenge. I'm very happy for doing it, but I was quite sure that I wanted to go back to industry. And moving from academia to industry for me has been very challenging. Now, what do I say by that? Even though I knew that I wanted to move to industry, so I was preparing myself that I moved to industry. The thing is that during the academia, I have this weird routine, or better, I didn't have any routine at all. Why I can say working in an industry is more like a marathon. For me, the PhD was like a sprint. So I was having that nights without sleep. I was working hard, for example, 1 week, 12 hours a day, but then some other days I was not feeling motivated. I was not working. I was waking up at different time of day. So my life was completely, every day was different. And I think that led me to the success of my PhD. But at the same time, the problem that I had is that when I went back to work, my life changed completely and I was not ready for it. So probably one of the biggest advice that I have is for people moving from academia, which is not just research or to industry, is to understand that what I have experienced is that routine is the key. And in academia, probably if you are doing a PhD or if you are at university and you have a routine, well down to you. I was not one of them. But for example, waking up at the same time every morning, right now I've understood that it's necessary for me. And also understanding that some days I can't work 12 hours a day and then the other day 4 hours a day. So going back to what I said before, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So I need every day to go to work and to give my best. This goes back also to time management. While during my PhD, I was saying, okay, today I'm not working because I don't feel motivated, I feel low, and then I can work tomorrow like more hours. That doesn't work in the industry. So I would have preferred to kind of like someone telling me, hey, in industry you can't have this lifestyle that you have right now, because that was very challenging. But I learned it the hard way. I had to wake up every day at 6 a.m. and then from there I was like, okay, I'm not the morning person, because I had this idea that I was feeling more productive in the evening. But then I think that each of us can be a morning, evening person. We just need to train ourselves. And these habits, you need time, and you need also to not be too harsh with yourself. For me, waking up at 6 a.m. every day was very challenging at the beginning. So it's something that I did not develop in one day. It was quite challenging, but then I manage it. And right now, if for example during weekends my routine changes, I can feel how my body is like, no, it's better for you if we wake up at 6 a.m. And so that's why, for example, right now when I move from academia to industry, I am very strict with my time. The best thing that we have time, and the most precious thing. So when we are dedicating to someone our time, it means that it should be worth it. Then I'm trying also having daily habits without outside work. For example, I'm trying to keep up my French. After moving to England, I lost my French speaking capabilities. So in the evening, I have the Duolingo. If I can do just one lesson a day, it takes me 10 minutes. That is my daily habits, and it keeps me learning French. Another thing is there is the Wordle. That is something that I do as a fun exercise in the evening, but I try to do it every day. And sometimes I fail, because sometimes I'm so tired, but I still do it because I still learn a new word, even though maybe I didn't give my maximum. So I'm trying to have these daily habits also outside of my work. Then the other thing that I noticed when I was in my PhD, my eating plans and habits were all over the place. I was having breakfast at one time, lunch at another time, or randomly. Sometimes I was having 5 meals a day, some days 2 meals a day. What I understood is that at work I need to have quite strict regime in eating, and simply because you need to adapt to also when you work in a team, to when other people are working, not just when is my best productivity time. And so what that means is like you need to interact with other people when you have the meetings, etc. In addition to that, also what I notice is that if I have a big heavy lunch, then it takes me 2 hours then to focus. So all this problem that while I was in PhD, I didn't think about this. Now in industry, I need to think very, very carefully about my eating habits. Then the final thing that I would say, as you can see here, I put the gym. So usually people relate the gym just with keeping fit. I discovered that each of us, in my opinion, we need to have our place where we can go and to just disconnect. And for me, that is the gym. Even if I do 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, or 30 minutes a day, that is my daily habit that I think has had the most impact in my productivity, because I never never stop not going to the gym. Like I always go to the gym unless I'm traveling or there is something, even just for 5 or 10 minutes. It's the moment where I can completely disconnect. I can completely think just about myself with my thoughts, and it's the moment that really charges me. And I have tried, for example, meditation. I've tried different things. I remember going to the meditation. It didn't work for me. I was so anxious staying there. So I think different things work for different people, but this is the place where I go just to disconnect. And what I mean by gym is not just the gym, is the sauna, the spa, the swimming pool. So all these things connected, but that is part also of my morning routine. And the final bit here, I've written, keep it steady, content, and discipline. Now, of course, it looks easy. Like I'm saying, this is the thing that how I want to do them. I don't do them every day. We are all humans. Some days you just don't feel well and you don't do it. This is what I strive to do it. So for me, keeping like my daily habits and my time management intact, it's very important. So I'm always happy to do them and I want to do them. So that doesn't mean that I do them every day, of course not. So some other thing that I would like to point here is this is about breaking the biases that we are mentioning before. Now, the thing that I learned probably in the hard way, if I can say in that way, is that if you want something to change, you should be the one to do it. Going back to my PhD, I remember when my research was not going well, I was expecting from my supervisor to help me. And sometimes I was also, I think, being unfair to my supervisor, saying why he's not dedicating more time, why he's not helping me with this, thinking that, hey, this thing is just putting me as the center of his world. Instead, my supervisor has family, has its own research, has the other students. So what I learned there is like, if I wanted to change my research, or if something was not going well, I should be the one making the change. And I see this also at my day-to-day job. When I went the first day at the trading floor, it was so intimidating. Trading floor is exactly as you maybe have seen in many movies about Wall Street, where you have these people screaming and they are tall and they look so relaxed. Maybe the world is on fire, like right now. In this end, I went there and I was like, oh my God, like I don't fit here. And then day by day I was having, okay, like I'm having this problem. I hope my supervisor would notice it. No, it's not that my supervisor or my manager, they didn't want to work with me or to deal with me, just that they had so many things. So what I learned is like when I was unhappy or when something was not well, I needed to raise the hand and to raise the issue. And breaking the biases here, what I've noticed just in my small team, we are 2 girls, and usually then when we started speaking about this, we were the one having maybe many issues, and we were the one putting less issues forward, things that maybe were not going well in our research or in our work. So I personally have had this thing that, okay, like because I'm not feeling well, my habits are changing, my manager will notice it, so he'll come back to me. Probably that can happen, and it happened to me that my manager noticed it, that I had an issue, but it takes time. So if I wanted the change to happen as soon as possible, I should be the one to raise the hand and say, okay, I don't agree with this, or I'm having this issue, how can I move forward? And then failure. Now, speaking about failure, I want to say that I've failed many times as everyone. And usually what I've read in internet or the speeches is like failure is good and you just learn, which I completely agree. But many times what people, I think, forget to say is that when you fail, you feel bad. And I think it's okay to feel bad, because what we were doing is something that we cared. So I have learned that I need to leave myself, that moment to feel bad. Now, more I have failed in my life, nor this moment of feeling bad has been coming shorter and shorter. For example, I can share with you the biggest failure which I think happened to me was when I was in my master in France and we were doing the internship. I was one of the top students. I was approached by 3 or 4 companies. They offered me these contracts. Then Intel came from Denmark and offered me a contract for an internship. And I was so excited. I said, "Oh my God, it's Intel. I'm leaving all these other companies." So I rejected them without getting the contract from Intel. Then due to some immigration rules, they couldn't hire me. So after 1 month of being the person with most proposal for job, I was left without any type of job. And I can say that felt really, really bad. So I can tell you that makes me stronger. Of course, now I can tell you, but at that moment I was feeling completely hopeless and really bad. So, and that period it lasted to me like for 1 month. So 2 lessons I learned there: never reject a contract without signing the other one. I learned it the hard way. And then the second one is, in that case, I was being harsh with myself and harsh also with the company, but this is also beyond us because it was related with Denmark rules and laws. I can't remember right now, but whatever. Instead of I stayed 1 month crying and feeling like a failure. I could have spent 1 month going and approaching other companies, which I didn't. Then I was able to find an internship, but that put everything in my scholarship and things like 2 months delayed, which was quite challenging. Now, imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is something that I've written here. It's real and we all have it. Before starting this call, I shared with Luisa, I don't know if I have anything to say. Like even though Luisa and Anne invited me, and I know that they invited me because they thought that I could have something good to share with you all. And I prepared, I wrote my slides. Yesterday I was saying I still, like 5 minutes before the talk, I was saying, I don't think I have something useful to share. So what I want to say about that is that the first thing of tackling the imposter syndrome is by admitting that we have it. And when we know that we have something, by admitting it, as I mentioned before, is like the first step. Then the second step is to say, what can we do to improve it? So I can share here 3 examples. For example, as I mentioned before, going to the trading floor, I came home, I was like, I don't fit there, I don't have the courage. I was seeing particularly finance traders, it's mainly there are more men than women. And you could see that there, independently what's happening in the market, they are always ready there to take decision. What I was forgetting is that these people were having 15 years of experience, while I had probably 2-3 months. So in my moment where I was comparing myself with these people, I was not putting the fact that I just started 3 months and they had 15 years. Then I was coming home, and how I solved it is just by speaking with my partner, by speaking with the people I love, by crying, and then by saying, hey, I belong there. Why I belong there? Because when I was going to the meetings and I had something to say, actually lots of my ideas were being implemented. But this is a process. This didn't happen to me over time or over one day. It is a long process. And as I mentioned, it's something that I continue to struggle. The other thing is me speaking French. Right now, every time I speak French with my friend, I feel okay. When I speak French with someone who is not my friend and I don't feel comfortable, I don't speak French. I say, I don't know how to speak French. I can just understand it. And that is not okay, because when I'm conscious, I know that my French is good for being someone that has not practiced French in 4 years. So what I'm doing to solve it is I have my French friend who right now, every time she sees me, she forced me to speak French. So slowly in that way, I have accepted that I have an issue, but I'm also trying to find a solution to it. So we all have it. Women usually tend to have it more. I don't think women tend to have it more. In my opinion, my honest opinion, I just think we show it more. Instead, men try to hide it better. I think that comes with experience. For example, right now, also me, when I try to go to the office, I try to leave some of the problems that I can have outside, in my personal life or inside going to the office. Usually before I was mixing my work with my personal life and mixing all these things. And when I was more vulnerable, then I was feeling also more vulnerable at work. Take ownership. I think also this is something that fits properly breaking the bias. What I've noticed is usually I can start saying by me. At the beginning, I was doing a lot of hard work. I was doing a lot of good work, and I was just saying, well, someone will notice. As you can see, all these points are related together, with change, with failure, with imposter syndrome. I was just saying, okay, I will do all this great work. Someone will notice, and they will come back to me and tell me, okay, you did this great work. Now, the thing is, like, people are very, very busy. So the fact that they are not noticing, they don't mean, I don't see it as they are bad, because now I've understood it. It's just that you need to stand up in the meeting and to say, okay, I did this. And it just takes time to learn it. I'm doing this, I'm trying to do this more and more. It's tough, because there is that mixed feeling where you don't want to show off yourself too much. But I think here, for example, we can take a lot of example for our male colleagues. They are really good at doing this. And right now, I'm also trying to work with my colleagues. So when they know, I have great colleagues. When they know that I did something, they'll tell me, hey, Arta, just jump in the call and say that you did this. Or of course, as I mentioned before, the manager can help, the colleagues can help, but I needed to be the change that I wanted to see. And in this case, I'm just, when I do something, when there is a meeting that is the topic of the focus, or the topic of the meeting is my work, I just jump in the meeting and say, okay, I did that, blah, 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 I did this 2 weeks ago, and this is the conclusion. Taking ownership is very important. It shows initiative, it shows leadership, and it helps also with the next point, which is negotiating. Now, if you open internet and you do some research, you would see that women don't negotiate. Women are the least to negotiate. This is one of the topics that during our Rising Wise I've mentioned also in my last talk, has changed my life, because it's true. Now, I don't know what is the best solution. They are very, as I mentioned before, all this researchers try to propose solution. I personally don't think that here there is a winning formula that applies to everyone, but as I mentioned before, women negotiate less. So for us to change that, we need to negotiate more. And this change needs to start from us. And also something else that we need to understand, that negotiating is not just money, it's not just salary. Negotiating is for the future career, for what we want to do in the future, or if we want to have a career change. For example, right now I'm negotiating because I'm trying to have a career change, and I want that change. It should be me initiating it. And I just organize call with my manager and I say, okay, I want to work more on this project and less on this project. Now, of course, things don't happen overnight. Of course, you can have also rejection. Of course, for example, my manager told me, okay, you need first to finish this. We need you there, and then we can see. But negotiating is not just about salary. Of course, it's also salary. We are all doing a great job, so I don't think there is nothing wrong also asking for more money, because sometimes it's seen as greedy. I think that we all know our point of value. We all know what we bring at the table. So everything is negotiable, and it needs to change with us. For us to change the statistics, this article that we see on Google, why women negotiate less. Well, we need to negotiate more. And the final point is to never take things personally. This is related with all the points before, and I've put it the last because if you negotiate and they say no, usually we tend to feel bad. I felt bad my first time. It's okay. I should not take it personally. The world does not rotate around me. My manager has like 10 people to manage. Each of them has different requests. So also, if I put myself and be a bit more empathic from his point of view, I can see that, okay, he has also many people with different requests. So not taking this personally is very hard, but I have discovered that is the thing that will make you, in my opinion, your hard work kind of like get more value. And why that? Because personally in the past, what has happened is, instead of me working, I've lost time saying, why did he say that to me? Why the answer was that? And that I was getting more and more negative energy, where I could not get that negative energy, lower my productivity, and just continue working on what I was doing. This is very tough. This is something that I deal every day. I'm trying to not get things personally, not just at work. Sometimes you have a friend that probably it tells you I cannot not go out, and then you see on Instagram that they are out. So you are like, okay, why that friend didn't go out with me but with someone else? So having this empathy, not just at work, but in our lives, and not saying that everything is about me, and the reason that someone else is reacting in that behavior does not necessarily mean that they can be bad managers or bad co-workers. That could also be the case, but I'm trying to be more positive and just look on the positive side. So, but by not taking things personally, just helps me. I feel less of this negative energy that then I created all this weird ideas in my head of why someone answered to me that way. For example, in the trading floor, it's very obvious that people have very few times because things change dramatically. So at the beginning, I was waiting someone when they answer me to be very polite, like, hi, Arta, how are you? How was your weekend? No, people don't have time. And I realized that right now also I have changed. Sometimes when someone asks me a question, I just go directly to the point. I would probably skip all this introduction of how was your weekend. And not because I'm not caring about that, but maybe when I have some free time or in the evening, I would do that. This learned me a lot. As I said, it's very tough because of course we also have our emotional part. But I think what I'm trying to do at least is to balance my rational and my emotional part. Having said that, now I will just close with, I try to surround myself with role models. I come from a family of 4 children. I have my older sister who is my role model. My mother is my role model. She was an engineer with four children. My partner is my role model, my best friend. But I always look for new inspiration. So I wanted to share with you the small story of Sofia Goggia, who is my role model for... at the moment that I discovered what she did, I just cried and I couldn't feel more proud for her, to be Italian. I'm also an Italian citizen. So was also that part. But so what happened is that Sofia Goggia had before the Winter Olympics, she had a knee injury, very bad in Cortina. And no one, when I mean no one from the Italian media to the other media to the skiing fans would believe that she would even go to compete to the Beijing Olympics. Not she even went to compete after just 3 weeks, but she win the silver medal. And that was a moment of inspiration to me, because for 3 weeks, when everyone, and what I mean everyone, if you go and look the articles for her, would say, okay, everyone feeling sorry about her and, trying to consolate. No, she just break all this expectation. Of course, it was painful, but she's my role model. This is the power of determination, which means that we have, we can chase other opinions. We can be strong. Nobody can tell us you cannot compete or anything. So I just, every time when I want to do something, I think about Sofia Goggia, how she with a broken knee won a downhill silver at Olympics. So, okay, I hope I have not spoken too much. That was my presentation. Thank you very much for joining. Now, I'm here, I have my lunch, my tea. This is all my accounts where you can reach out to me. And I'll be very happy to connect. And I hope you like what I said and what I shared. So now I'm happy for questions.
Thank you so much, Arta. That was just brilliant. I really feel like you took us on a journey, starting off with that photo of you when you were a little girl and, right up to sort of where you are and what you're doing now. And thank you so much for being so honest about not only successes, but struggles and current struggles, as well as past struggles. I think that's made your talk really relatable. So we've got a couple of questions have gone into the chat. Anne, would you like to start with yours? I don't know if you can come off.
No, I'm going to say, Tatiana, go for it. Sure. Come off mute and share yours.
Hi, Arta. Thanks so much for sharing your story. You already touched upon the role of role models on your very final slide, but I was wondering, at earlier stages of your life, what role did also female role models play to you, and how did that change over time, and who in the past was your role model?
Thanks for the question. So I think this is the part of my life where I think is related with my childhood, and that's the reason why I shared my picture, because at the beginning of my career, but I think not just my career, of my whole life, I would say my mother is my role model. So as I mentioned, we are 4 kids. Just to give a background history, so I was born in the 90s. Albania before was a complete dictatorship. So I am kind of like the first generation of democracy. So my parents were born and they lived in this very harsh dictatorship. So I am very happy about the way that I was raised up from my parents, because as I mentioned, my mother was a civil engineer, but her dream was to be to study architecture. But at the time, the government did not allow her to study architecture because they needed civil engineers. So she had to go and study civil engineer. And with her discipline, she studied what she was told, and she was the best of her class. So from there, from my mother, I learned not only that sometimes things cannot turn out as you'd hope to, but anyway, you need to take what life gave to you, in that case for her to be a civil engineer, and to give her best in achieving that. So that courage, I think probably I'm less courageous than my mother, because I don't know if someone right now would come to me and tell me, okay, you can't be on the trading floor because you need to be there. It would completely change my mind. So I would say my mother, absolutely. And as I mentioned, we are 4 kids. My mother never stopped working. And she has a brilliant career. Of course, her career would have been different if she was not in a dictatorship regime, because she couldn't go outside, she couldn't travel abroad. So I think I'm also happy that I realized some of the dreams of my parents by me traveling and going around the world. So I'll definitely say my mother. And then the other person while I was growing up was my sister. And my sister for the same reason. My sister is a divorced mother, but she works. She has 2 jobs. She takes care of her child. She's the best mother. So every time I need motivation, as I mentioned before, I look outside, like at Sofia Goggia. But I think the best motivation for me and making me, the strong woman who I am is in my family. And other than that, I always try to look also, I would say, different people in Albania, different young girls in Albania. I have my friends who didn't have the courage to study abroad until she was 30 years old. And then at 30 years old, she won this Erasmus scholarship, and she spent 1 year in Spain, 1 year in Italy, and 1 year in Glasgow. So I am surrounded by this, by these people. And then I can also say here that Tatiana is one of my friends. So, Tatiana is also one of my role models, because she just landed the best job in DC at IMF. So I'm so proud of her. So I would say that I keep my circle quite small, but I'm surrounded by all these strong and encouraging women and men. I would put here also my partner, my husband. I wouldn't do anything about him. He is the one that when he sees me that my imposter syndrome is kicking in, he sits down with me and tells me, okay, just write down what you have achieved, so you know that you can, this is your imposter syndrome speaking, not you. So I hope I managed to give a picture of, so these are kind of like my permanent one. Then Sofia Goggia and other role figures in the world are the one that I look to, and I during my reading, during my research.
Thank you.
That was great, thank you. And just to, my question was a very much more humdrum one, really, but I was just struck when you were talking, Arta, at how that self-discipline that you were talking about, and recognizing that, it's so easy to get into the habit of thinking, I'm my own time master when you're doing a DPhil to a large extent. I mean, laboratory access determines some things, but
Yeah.
how do we, without sounding like we're trying to, wave a finger at people and say, you've got to do this, how can we try and share those insights that you were offering about how healthy it is to develop those sort of disciplines, rather than not just time management, but across the piece, all those sort of healthy things. I'm genuinely curious to know how, from you and others, how can we foster more of that in all the things that we offer to our students, because we just kind of leave it like, you just get on with it, learn that stuff, and somehow we've got to make it more visible.
No, and I fully agree with you, and I hope during my talk I was able to show how this has been the biggest struggle for me. And if I didn't say it, I'm saying probably me moving from academia to industry, that was my biggest struggle. And I want to be absolutely honest. Look, I don't think there is a formula. DPhil, I think DPhil is a journey, is a personal journey. So everyone is every DPhil is different. So right now, every time someone comes to me and asks me, should I do a DPhil? I personally, I always say it's something that it's a decision you need to take, because DPhil really changed your life and really changed mine. It gave me so many good things, but I think probably the bad thing of the DPhil is that it killed all my routine. I had this routine when I was living in France, probably when I was working at the startup, not the same way that I have it right now, because I also want to say that, you know, working in the financial markets, you know, I need to be at the office at 7:30. So I have also some strict limits, like from 7:30 to 5 when the markets open. I need to be there, right? So I have also some strict limitation. But independently of that, I can see how me having this morning routines really helps me. As I mentioned before, going 5 minutes to the gym or going 30 or going 20 doesn't matter. And of course, I can also see some improvement in my body, but that is kind of like a collateral thing. For me, it's more mental. I can see how when I don't go to the gym, I feel sleepy during the day. So what we can do during for example, I would say just sharing more of this, how the outer world, except academia, is different. And that's what I mentioned. The way I at least treated my DPhil was more as a sprint rather than a marathon. So I want to submit this paper that is the sprint. So I need to reach that. So before the paper writing, I was working crazy hours. I was not eating sometimes. So a complete mess, complete mess, no gym, nothing, no life. For example, I remember that during my first 2 years of my PhD, I didn't attend any, or at least the first one, any event at my college because my PhD was not growing well. I was kind of like punishing myself because I thought I was not doing great research. And I think that just probably, you know, supervisors maybe, or when we do this event with Rising Wise or like with Women in Engineering, now that I remember, it's kind of like we never speak about what is after academia because maybe we kind of like foresee more that people with a PhD are going more towards an academic life. So probably that in that case, when you move from a PhD up to a postdoc, you don't have that much of a change. You can still, you are very flexible. But we need also, exactly with Rising Wise, how we see when you want to go to industry, to discuss about how there is no sprint anymore. It's a marathon. And every day I remember my internship when I was working these crazy hours, my manager kept telling me, and I was feeling like, does you not need to work less? Because you feel like, okay, I'm working more. So logically you want your manager to work more. No, he didn't want me to burn out. And, you know, as Luisa mentioned, because I want to be as honest as possible, last November, after I graduated, I completely burned out. I shared that probably with Tatiana. I completely burned out. I worked so much that even though I'm giving you this example, I didn't follow it by myself. So I burned out. I reached this point in November where I would go in front of my computer and I had no idea what I was doing, or probably my brain was so slow because I've so overworked. And that I don't want to justify myself, but I've read that that is also, you know, due to COVID, we didn't have anything else to do. So I think there could be other reasons. And so I didn't want to be that harsh with myself, but I burned out. And right now I just keep telling myself it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But I think that people that are moving from academia to industry, in my opinion, this is the hardest thing, because until, at least for me, until I was forced to do it, I didn't change. And probably, you know, I don't know if other people can try changing at the last end of their PhD or the last year, it would be great. I couldn't, even though, for example, my partner was telling me, and I couldn't. I just started changing while I was working, and that's why it was quite challenging. And I as I mentioned, I still strike right now, right? Like it's quite challenging for me also right now to say, okay, I need to work this limited amount of time. I cannot take time from my habits that I want to do. So there are all these things, and that I think probably also just by sharing like I'm doing right now is just raising awareness sometimes, because I don't think that there are formulas for this thing. Everyone needs to find what is the right thing that works for them. For example, as I mentioned, I tried meditation. It didn't work for me. It was making me more anxious. It was making me not working. And instead for me, the sauna, because it's like over 70 degrees, works for me and completely makes me relax. So I think it's a personal thing, but by raising awareness, and I think then, you know, we can start thinking, okay, I also have this issue. What can I do and how can I improve it? And always remember that is a process. It took me more than 6 months to reach my routine. So it's not something that happens over the night or over a week.
Thank you, Arta. That's great. And I think you're right. I think everybody reacts differently to things, and sometimes it's trying different things, isn't it? And having the self-awareness to prompt yourself to actually try those things in the first place. So Virginia, you have your hand up. Would you like to unmute and ask your question? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the talk. It's been really inspiring, and also thank you for being so honest. I was going to ask about the topic of resilience. Because
Yes.
to me, you sound like an extremely resilient person. I'm just wondering, did you bring that to your PhD, or did you develop that during the PhD? But also in general, you mentioned some days you didn't work, like today's not the day. And I have a lot of days in which I don't feel like I can work. And I'm trying to write my thesis and avoiding it. So I guess related to resilience,
Oh my God.
how do you overcome the moment when you don't want to do, when you just feel you can't start, or I don't know if you have anything to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. So I just want to say that I am resilient, but I'm also very, deep inside me. That's why I mentioned there are some people here, Tatiana, one of them, that she can probably tell you how in some moments I'm very weak. I wrote to her yesterday, I don't know what to say in the meeting tomorrow, right, in the talk. So all of us, the reason why I wanted to be so open is that exactly, I just don't want to say, this is the right formula, look, I'm strong, because or better, it's a process, right? So I think that to answer your question, was I so resilient when I went to the PhD? I think if I have to pick probably a moment where it changed my life, is the failure that I mentioned before with the contract when I was in my master, which happened before my PhD, when I neglected all these 4 contracts, and then Intel did not hire me. I was left without an internship. And just to give you a brief, the reason why that was so critical is because for me to keep my scholarship, I needed to end the whole process in February. So that means that I wanted to start my internship in June, do 6-month internship, then have two months, January and February, in order to write my master thesis. I started the internship in beginning of September, and so 3 months late. If I didn't graduate in February, I needed to return my money back for the scholarship because I was not graduating in time. So what happens is that I was working in France, and I was learning a new language. I was still, I changed, from master to the industry. So still having some of this problem in a smaller mass, but still this problem were there. And at the same time, I was working during the day. I wanted to keep working in that company because I like the environment. So I wanted them to offer me a full-time contract. I was finishing working at 7, 8, then I was going home and trying to write my thesis. So the problem why I say that was a big kind of like big change, and the thing that probably is the first wall that I put in my resilience is that one, simply because I understood how that was a big failure, and that was me simply for trying to want more because I saw Intel, and that is absolutely fine. But as an engineer, I was trained all my life since I was a kid to prepare for the worst case scenario. So what that means, I was, when you design a system as an engineer, you don't design it for the best case scenario, you design it for the worst case scenario. So that's where I think I failed, because just because I wanted this thing so much to go to Denmark, was a new country, Intel, blah, blah, blah. I kind of like did not foresee the case that, hey, I have these other 4 companies that offered me a job. Maybe I could keep one of this, reject the other 3, get the contract from Intel, sign it, and then reject this one. I just decided, and everything was I was hired. So I think probably that was the big step. And I think resilience comes from failure. I don't think that, you are just born, is a process. But I think probably there I learned a lot of things. And there also where I learned that if I had spent less time in me crying and feeling bad, I would have found probably my internship earlier rather than in September. Now, going to the PhD is, in my opinion, the best thing that can teach you about resilience, particularly the type of PhD that I was doing, which I was the owner of the research, in the sense I did not have a well-designed project, which is so exciting that as it may sound, but at the same time is so challenging because, I was in front of computer and my supervisor was, okay, you have the money now, just start researching on what you like. And I was like, I don't know what I like. Or when you find what you like, maybe someone else has already done it. So I think that even though I went with a bit of resilience in the PhD, I would say is the place that teaches you the best of resilience, and is also the place where, in my opinion, it's worth doing the PhD, simply for the resilience. Because for being a bit nerdy now, it's kind of like the delta of Dirac function, right? Like you have all this low, then you have when you do some research, you have your paper, this infinite energy, you feel on top of the world, then you go again low and you need to write another paper, and you have this month where you feel very bad, and then you give this other and then you do this other paper, this other research. So I feel like PhD, but also there is a process. So, you know, now that you are at the end, look, the best advice that I can give you is like, there is no excellent thesis. What I learned is like a finished thesis is a better thesis. So nothing will be perfect, you know, don't strive for perfection. I think also going back to the topic of breaking the biases, we as a woman, we have this thing that we are never happy with what we have done and wanting it better. At some point, you know, you just learn. And what helped me is that I was, when I started my internship, I was also writing the thesis. And so by having this limitation that if I wanted a full-time job, they would never hire me if I had not submitted my thesis, that also put me some constraints. So if you are not a very well-disciplined, like right now I work on my discipline, but during my PhD, I was not well-disciplined. How I solved that is by putting this limitation around. So in my case was, I need to finish my thesis because I want the full-time job and I have to do it. And I did it. So in the moment that you feel like you cannot do it by yourself, try to put this kind of like other limitation. At least that's how I solved it. That's how I solved it, right? Like with the French, I cannot speak with a friend, with a stranger in French, but my friend now is forcing me to speak French every time I see her. So it's at least that works for me. So I know you will do it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Arta. Emily, would you like to go next? I can see you have your hand up. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Hi Arta.
Hello.
Thanks for putting on this great talk. Honestly, I've really enjoyed it. And to be honest, I came to this talk because I recognized your name, Arta, because I'm also at Oriel, and I think a couple of my tutors have mentioned your name. I think
Thank you.
Communications. And so I'm an engineering undergrad in my third year, and next year I have my fourth year project, and that will be maybe 1 or 2 supervisors, and I'll be working on something that hopefully I'll get my first choice and work on something that I want to do. But it's that sort of relationship, navigating how to get the most out of your project with someone who's overseeing all of it, and how to get, you know, good communication, ensure that the project runs on time. Like all of this, I have had a little bit of experience with this year, but I'm feeling a bit daunted about, you know, choosing a project, getting on with a supervisor. Do you have any advice about how to maybe pick a project, find a supervisor that you work well with, and just, yeah, in general, because I've got 1 more year and I want to like get the most out of it.
Of course. So I think that there are a couple of things here, and I think what you are going on through, I think everyone who did the masters went through. So I will speak to you based on my experience and based on how I did it in the wrong way, I think, and what I should have done. So I hope this can help you. So I think the first thing, in my opinion, this project that you are speaking really help you, and you should see this as an opportunity of what you want to do next. So I think if I can just go back a bit to my PhD, I have seen a lot of my colleagues struggle because they were doing their PhD and they were just thinking short term what they want to do without thinking what they want to do next. So for example, in my PhD, as I mentioned, I knew always that I wanted to go to industry. So what I did, instead of me wanting to publish 10 papers, I said, I want to publish 4 papers, something new, something interdisciplinary, something that really excites me, and the 10 more conferences, network more, meet new people. Why? Because this would help me in my future career. So see this project of yours as something that could be like a bridge for the next step you want to do. Let that be, I don't know, continuing with a master or going to the industry. Because in that case, when you go to interviews, they ask you why you are interested. And we all think that is a stupid question. I actually, when I interview right now, I think that's one of the best questions that you can ask, because if you just came to interviewing for my team and you tell me, well, because I like this or that, I'd say, okay, like you want people that are motivated. So if you go to the job or to the industry, you can say, hey, I'm interviewing for this team because I did this project. So I've been interested in this that I'm doing long time ago. Independently how you deal in the other things, I would want really to hire you, because this show me that you have been thinking about this thing, that you have a plan, that you can think long term, and that you can work to achieve what you are doing, right? So for example, take also here, taking my case, I knew nothing about finance, right? Going back on the trading floor, people were thinking about interest rate, about this. I was like Googling what an interest rate is. I was keeping my financial vocabulary at the beginning because I was coming completely from a scientific background. After 3 months, I realized that, hey, the math that I've used in my engineering science is actually the same math that I can use in my algorithm in trading. I just needed kind of like a vocabulary between the two. So self-learning, in my opinion, is the best thing. Once you have that solid background that a university like Oxford can give it to you, then you can do all these things, right? Being open-minded, because everyone was telling me, oh, wow, you are going to finance, you are an engineer, or you love math. So having this bridge will help you. That's the first thing. Then the second thing is, when you are designing the project, try to put a realistic project. Because I remember when I failed, I was doing this thing that had absolutely no way that those things could be done in the amount of time that you had the project. But how can you understand that? Because of course by yourself you cannot. It's very difficult. That's where the supervisor is important. So among the professor that you have had, for example, Justin was my supervisor. I think she still is at Oriel for the engineering. I think Justin as a supervisor is really good in advising you about this thing. So I would suggest, even if you are not picking him, you can speak with him, and at Oriel you have all the support. Because picking the right supervisor, in my opinion, is also related to the project, in the sense that the project may go bad, as I mentioned before. You can start something and for that many reasons doesn't turn out to work. But the supervisor can tell you, okay, you can do that, but it will be quite broad, right? To give you a direction. It should still be you, the person who needs to take the step, right? Going back to what I said, you need to change it. And then the final advice is, if the supervisor doesn't answer, don't take it personally, right? Don't lose time in thinking, I need to do this all by myself. You need to ask for help. Asking for help is usually seen as weak. Right now, I ask for everything. I don't care that I have a PhD from Oxford, because at the beginning people were expecting, because I have a PhD from Oxford, I know everything. And I was having also that kind of like complexity and imposter syndrome. No, asking for help is the first thing. You need to ask for help. Imagine if you work on something for 1 week, knowing the first day on Monday that you have no idea what you are doing. I've done this so many times in the past and I keep doing it. So I'm telling you that it's not like now I don't do it anymore, but I'm trying to work on myself on it as well. Like I would go on Wednesday and I'm like, okay, it's not working. And then I'll think, okay, but I knew it since Monday that I'm not working. So what can I do? Set up a meeting with my manager and ask for help. And my partner, who is a manager, tells me that the big problem that he has is because people don't ask for help, because it's seen as weak. And usually women see this as even weaker, like we don't need to ask for help. So if your manager doesn't answer, if your supervisor in this case doesn't answer, don't take it personally. Contact it after 2 days. There is nothing wrong. Hey, maybe he lost the email. There are many reasons. As we said, we are all busy. If the help that he provided, you think that is not sufficient, because different people think the problem in different way, just try and be open. So this is what I would have done differently when I struggled, and it took me so long to maybe achieve, and don't lose time. Technically, this also goes back to the time management. So yeah, I hope this is helpful.
Yeah, it's especially helpful because like having the confidence to say, yeah, I didn't understand this a couple of days ago, and just turning around and being like, can you explain it again? Yeah, I'll take that on. Thank you very much.
I still have that, right? So as I told you, I still suffer with this thing even nowadays, but my logical part, I have those points written somewhere. When I need to be just with myself, I go, to the restrooms and I think about myself. I'm like, okay, just, or I speak with my friend, or, my point is like, it's normal. The things that you are having, it's normal saying, okay, was I supposed to understand it? What I've learned is like, this is just loss of time. Nothing's good come out of that thinking this, because you don't know what the other person is thinking. You are just imagining here. So it's just straight to the point. You didn't understand. And you have the reason, because of course the other person would ask you what you didn't understand. So it's not like you are losing their time. You have the thing, okay, I didn't understand A, I didn't understand B. Have always the bullet point of what you didn't understand. So this gives also the confidence to the supervisor, so that they know why you didn't understand or what you didn't understand. So it could be more productive conversation.
Yeah, and they're there to help, and I just gotta,
Good luck with it.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Arta, there's a couple of questions in the
Yes.
chat. So if we go to Natilla, I don't know, Natilla, whether you would like to come off mute and ask your question. If not, then we can just sort of access it in the chat. It is about how you found the company in the US that paid for your PhD in Oxford. Actually, I was wondering the same thing.
No, that's a very good point. So how I found my PhD was I was while I was working in France. As I mentioned before, I like living in different countries, etc., etc. So I knew I wanted to go to UK or US. So, and I knew I wanted to go to a top university. So I had first my list of universities that I wanted to apply, and then from there I started looking which one would fit what I wanted to do. I contacted my supervisor, and so it was my supervisor or the future supervisor who he put me in contact with different sources of how to get a scholarship, because I'm considered as an overseas student. I'm from Albania, so 1 year at Oxford was something like £20,000 just the fees. So no way, shape, or form I could have afforded that. And so I told him, like, I need some help with finding a scholarship. So he put me in contact, but then he told me, it's your job to make this happen. I was very grateful to him to put me in contact. So that's why also here, for example, for the students that are planning to do a PhD, that they want to look for funding, I think the best source would be the professors that they have at the university. And of course, the professor would not give you say, okay, this funding is down, would put you in contact. Then in my case, I organized a meeting, and of course, there were a couple of emails. I said I wanted to do this. I laid out my ideas, and as I mentioned before, I've been working on the research proposal for over 1 year, and that helped me because I have 3 different research proposals. After doing my research about the company and about the person, he also had a PhD. I knew which one would resonate more with him and with me, and I organized the meeting. So my supervisor was the bridge of contact. He put me in contact. Then it was me with my initiative, contacting this person, organizing the meeting, and then and convincing him to sponsor my PhD.
Excellent, thank you, Arta. And then moving on to Jolta's questions. So, what is your advice to young graduates in pursuing either their academic or professional life? So, thinking about next steps, really.
No, that's a very good question. I think this is, first of all, I think this is very personal. So as I mentioned, since when I was a child, I was very curious. I was very interested in building stuff. So I knew that I wanted to do a PhD. I wanted to do research, but while I was doing research and I loved it, for me, the part that my research was just remaining in the paper was not enough. So I wanted to do more tangible research. I wanted to do some of the research that people could use it. And then having that also in industry experience for me was quite easy to put in balance the two aspects. Now, I usually think that instead of me saying what I like, usually I tell to people what I don't like, because unless we try things, we don't know what is best for us, and we don't know if it works. Going back, so I want to answer your question with my examples, because I think in this way is more personal, and also I still believe that I don't think that there is a formula for this. So, for example, when I finished my PhD and I wanted to go back to industry, I was interviewing with finance companies, with big banks, investment banks, but at the same time I was interviewing with Facebook and Google, because that was like my safest road, in the sense, going back to now an engineer, you need to prepare for the worst case scenario, and then to have like the big case scenario, which for me was going into a bank. So what I would say here, usually internships are a great thing. So if you are doing a research, or if you are working as a researcher, if you are at the university, or if you are doing a PhD, doing an internship gives you already that exposure to the industry. So for example, I would always suggest to people I did only one internship during my PhD, but my friend Tatiana here did many. So, I think that she could be like the best example, for example, to say how good it is to do all these different internships, because you get the exposure, because until you try, you don't know. So that's for me my best in this case advice would be, go and try, do an internship in a company. If you don't want to start a PhD because it's for a year, you can work also as a researcher, for example, for 1 year, and then you can understand better what fits you, because probably what fits me or what I think that is best for me, you go in the place and you understand that it's not best for you, because it's absolutely the reality. It is different. So for example, I started my internship at Morgan Stanley thinking, I want to do, it's just a 6-month internship. I was interviewing with Google, Facebook, Palantir, all these tech companies. I was making my connection because I'll go in the finance world. I'll see if I don't like it, I still have all this connection. Then from 6 months at Morgan Stanley, I'll jump back and go to a tech company. So in this case, without trying, you can't know. And in my case, I turned out I love trading floor. Even though it's intimidating with all the problems that it have, I love finance, and I love doing this algorithm that I know that every day, even though challenging, it's a tangible work. I can see when people are using it. I can see, hey, this day we made this money because of my work. So that's what fulfills me. So that's why doing the internship is, in my opinion, would be the best suggestion here, to try and understand what really you like more.
Thank you, Arta. Raquel, do you want to come off mute and ask your question, or I can read it out? Is Raquel actually still with it? Yes, there you are, Raquel.
Yeah. Hi, Heather. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you again, Arta. It's always lovely to meet you and to hear you talking about your experience. Yeah, when we were talking about this resilience thing and the PhD. It actually it made me agree totally, because that's one of the first things that I learned during my PhD, because I was expecting intellectual challenge, this will be difficult, blah, blah, blah. And one of my first lessons was actually, emotional resilience, managing your expectations and manage your time the best that we can. And I think it's, especially, I don't know, for us women, I don't know, this is just a stereotype that it's unconscious, ingrained in our mind. I think we work most of the times harder than smarter. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't work harder, but I think sometimes we just have to adjust and work smarter. And I was just wondering if you felt that way at some point in your experience in your career, and if you have any comments and tips, basically. Cheers.
That's I've said many times that's a perfect question, but I really like this question because I think these are all struggles that we have, and I currently have as well. So I completely agree with you. Working smarter is better than working harder. These are not mutually exclusive, of course. During my PhD, I was working harder rather than smarter. And this is related with a couple of things. I didn't have a routine. I didn't have no one to tell me, okay, don't work at 1 a.m. or don't wake at 12, random things. And I also think that, look, every PhD is different, right? So right now saying I am who I am also because of my PhD, but probably if I would go back, I would think that I would want it during my PhD to work smarter, simply because of the days that I spent checking how many commas I had in my papers. Absolutely useless. Or I don't know, I think everyone can relate with writing the paper, or is my end put in the right? So I did that probably 3 or 4 times, but then at the 5th time, I think it was more me not being ready to submit through the paper rather than the commas or the and the other words that were not ready. Now, when you go to industry, in my opinion, the good thing is that the environment around you teaches you this thing because you have time limitation. As I was mentioning before to Luisa, we had this small talk before, right now with everything that is happening in the world, I can do my research and think this algorithm works best. Then I would go next day in the work and nothing would work, right? Because right now we live in a high uncertainty market. And so what that means is like, I don't have time to find the perfect algorithm. I need in 2 hours to find the next thing that works. And in that case, I've understand how having this limitation, right? Going back to the thing when you are not able to do it by yourself, having this limitation, which in some case, your friends or family, or in this case, my work puts to me, well, I'm able to find the quickest algorithm that works, and already working, it's a good achievement. So usually when you do interview with tech companies, famously Google, they'll give you an algorithm to solve. And many people fail those interviews because they would want immediately to find the best algorithm that works with the highest performance. Usually you should start, okay, this is the easiest one that works. probably its complexity is a lot, so it's not feasible, but it works. If you are giving to the algorithm to do 1 + 1, I already, me as an employee, I have produced something that works. Then the next step is to improve it. And then the next step is to improve it. And so it's kind of like a building block, right? So it's what we call the critical thinking, which is very important in the industry. I think probably in academia, it's a bit less because of you don't have this time, or in my case, I was working alone, so I was not working with other people. But taking a complex problem and splitting it in simpler problems and then solving those and building it back, it's one of the I would say the biggest skill that I have right now, and that, you know, when I negotiate, I usually sell it very well, because I know that it's a very, very difficult skill. So usually I would go and say, you give me a problem, I can give you a solution in the amount of time that is reasonable, of course. It's not the best solution, but it works. And this is much better than usually what we learn in academia, where you are dreaming for the perfect solution, because that is what theory, right? And because you don't put it in practice. So that's it. That is also the gap with the practice and theory. So I think that trying to work smarter, and it's also related with the time management. Also, because when you are working in a team, usually you don't work just in one thing. So you need to work in many other things. You don't have the luxury of time to dedicate all, you know, how much time you want to the thing that probably interests you more, because you need to do also the things that you don't like. Something that, for example, during the PhD, you could just say, okay, I'm not interested in this. I'm not doing, right? I'm not pursuing this because I'm not interested in it, at least that's what I was doing. So I was only pursuing the streams of idea that I was interested in. Job, no, in my work, I cannot do that. So I also think that industry also helps you to work smarter, because that is also the way that you can thrive and succeed, by simply having this limitation of time, right? You can't have, you know, for example, right now we need to have something ready for 1 week. It needs to be ready in 1 week, because you need to. So in that case, you need to find the simplest solution that gives the best result. And that's where the STEM subject, it's an optimization problem, really helps people, in my opinion, thrive in different areas, even if they don't have the background. Like in my case, I didn't know the financial terms, but I know how to give you the best algorithm that in one time that gives you the best. So the only thing that I needed to learn is this bridge, this language. But the STEM subject, in my opinion, are the best in preparing you for what industry really wants, which is, hey, we don't have time. We need to find the things that work less, and we need to implement it in the thing that work best, and we need to do it in the least amount of time. So, yeah, I hope my answer. Yeah.
No, yeah, like I keep hearing that from some friends that jumped from academia to industry, that they love the environment because it's time bound and team bound as well. So, and that's basically, in academia, normally you are in the ivory tower. You think you have all the time in the world, and you keep insisting on perfection, and keep thinking, feeling frustrated, and it's a never-ending cycle. So you just have to drop it and cut to the chase. So yeah, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
you. Arta, you may feel that you've touched on this, but Virginia asked a really lovely question in the chat about what it is that you love about finance and your current role. And then there's also, if you perhaps want to weave into your answer, then about the latest political developments. I know we touched on this before we started the actual call, and how that's impacting kind of your work and perhaps the wider financial markets.
Yeah, I'll probably start from the latest. So when I joined Morgan Stanley as an intern in with COVID now, my dates are in July 2020. Yes, with COVID, I feel like some years disappear. So the other day I was asked, "Oh, how are the markets there?" And my answer was, I have never worked in one day where the markets were normal. So I don't know from my experience what normal financial market look like, because I started working with COVID, right? And then now with what's happening in Ukraine, it's terrible. And also here, a personal note for me, it's very touching. As I mentioned, I come from Albania. In 1999, we have something similar. There was a war in Kosovo, and I was living in border with Kosovo. So what people in Poland are enduring right now, in the sense that they are hosting all these refugees. My family, we opened the door to a big family of refugees. And I remember as a kid, you know, I was 9 years old, I was asking my mother why I can't go to school, because I couldn't go to school, why I couldn't have my room, because, you know, my room, there were these 10 people living in a room, me, my family, and my sister were living in the other room. But I remember that with everything that was happening, these new people gave me joy in my life. So we have friend connection now. It's so I'm very, very touched by this, and I hope, you know, as we all know, hopefully this will be solved soon. But going back to financial markets, this is probably, it's one of those days I was mentioning before, that my research right now, I need also to adapt. I can't do any more long-term research. I need to do short-term research, because every day is different. And so if I do something right now, I know that it can't work for the whole week. Before I was doing something for 6 months. Now it's days or hours sometimes, because we need to adapt. And that is a new challenge. And this is also helping me to manage my time, is helping me to work smarter, because as I mentioned, you need to adapt. The markets change and I need to change with them. And for me, as a person writing the algorithm, I need to be proactive. I can't be, market has changed and I need to do, no, I need also to think kind of like, you know, in prediction, like how can the market react to this new thing coming? And having said that, I think this is the part of the job that I like the most. So I like the fact that every single day, at the end of the day, I can collect the fruit of my work. And this is also related to resilience, in the sense that some days it could be very bad days. I remember my first day, I was like, oh my God, we lost so much money. And I was feeling so bad, without thinking that it's not me, it's a team, right? But of course you want to take responsibility. So I think what to distinguish it with academia is the fact that here it's something that I get the input of my work immediately. And I think that's what I like more about the finance. Then trading is not just science, it's also art. And I also like that. So you can do all the algorithm that you want. And sometimes this algorithm just don't work. So, you know, you need to have the professional intuition, which come with experience in what is the best decision to do, because that is where math and statistics would not help you, because you don't have data points to analyze it. And what that gives you, it also helps you with resilience. Because as I was mentioning before, why trading floor is intimidating is that taking decision is quite hard, because at the end you are the person pressing the button, you are the person saying, okay, I'm doing this trade in this very uncertain environment. And I have, going back here to breaking the biases, I have noticed is that women unfortunately are the ones that put less themselves in the position of taking this decision. And as I mentioned, I want to be that person. You know, I went to my manager, I said, I'm happy, I want to be that person. He told me it could be also risky. I'm happy to take the risk. If I'm not going to risk right now, at this point of my career, when would I? So there are all these things that the financial market and my work in the finance institution that I like. Now, of course, it's not this, every environment I think has its own issues. So I think there are many things that we need to change, but I think in my opinion, this applies to all different type of environment. And I would say probably that the thing that I like the most about my job is direct input that I have from it. And then about London, look, I love London. So I think, as I mentioned, also my job, I started 2020. It was also Brexit. Oh my God, I also forgot Brexit. So you can see how for financial market, that was also kind of like a crazy thing. But, you know, long term, we'll wait and see. For now, I think like, at least for the near future, London is going to be quite an important point in Europe for financial markets. So we will see, I think, a bit of disruption, you know, due to Brexit, some banks going and leaving, but I think London will keep its position. So yeah.
Wow,
I hope my answer was so extensive. Yes.
I think you did. I think you wove both of those answers together perfectly. So thank you so much. I have just put something into the chat. We've got an extremely short feedback for those of you listening into the talk. If you're happy to fill that in, we'd really appreciate it. But just a huge thanks really, Arta, for taking time out of your extremely busy day to give us such an insightful, inspiring and also really personal talk that I think everybody here has managed to find many points of relatability to. On a personal note, I used to get up at 6:30 every day and do exercise till 7, and I've just completely stopped it. But you've really reminded me of how much better my day went if I did it. And I just got out the habit, and then I don't want to get up. So you've given me food for thought. I might be setting my alarm a bit earlier tomorrow.
That's great.
Yeah.
And remember,
so
doesn't matter how much. Important is to do it, right? Doesn't matter to be every day the same amount. It's just doing it. At least me feels better, even if I do, 15 minutes. I'm happy. Keep moving. Yes.
Yeah, well, that thank you. That was absolutely brilliant. We've all really enjoyed it. I'm sure I can speak on behalf of everyone here, and we can see through the chat as well. So thanks for your time and your energy.
Thank you again.
And have a great rest of day.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for joining.
Bye, Arta. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And you've got a very interesting soundtrack.
Oh God, sorry, I've forgotten I'd left myself off mute.